The restaurant was the kind that printed daily specials on a chalkboard and pretended not to notice when families stayed too long. Daniel liked places like that. Safe, predictable, respectable. It was his 35th birthday, and also his promotion dinner, senior vice president. My mother had said the full title 3 times before the appetizers arrived. We were seated in a long booth near the back. My parents at the center. Daniel beside Mom, angled slightly toward her like he still needed confirmation. I sat near the edge of the table, next to Grandpa. No one chose that seat. It was just where there was space. The waiter poured wine. My father raised a glass, to Daniel. Hard work, loyalty, stability. Everyone nodded as if these were rare virtues. Daniel smiled in that modest way he'd perfected since middle school. The smile that said, "I didn't ask for this attention, but I suppose I deserve it." I clapped lightly with everyone else. I had learned the choreography years ago. Conversation moved easily around Daniel, his new corner office, his team, his commute, mortgage rates, stock options. Words like trajectory and momentum floated through the air. At one point my mother turned to me and said, "You're still doing that writing thing, right?" There was no malice in her tone. Just mild confusion. "I'm a research fellow," I said gently. "Environmental policy, yes," she replied, already turning back toward Daniel. "Very creative." I didn't correct her. I rarely did anymore. Across from me, Daniel laughed about a junior associate who couldn't handle pressure. My father shook his head approvingly. Leadership requires toughness. I watched the condensation slide down my water glass and felt that familiar tightening in my chest. Not sharp enough to be anger, not soft enough to ignore. Grandpa had been quiet the entire night. He was 82 now. His hearing wasn't perfect, but his awareness was. He watched people the way some men watched markets, patiently, calculating patterns over time. Dessert menace arrived. My mother insisted on candles. The staff sang. Daniel pretended to be embarrassed. When the noise faded, Grandpa didn't reach for his fork. He looked slowly around the table instead. His gaze rested on each of us long enough to be uncomfortable. Then he asked, evenly, "Before we toast Daniel's promotion, does anyone here know what Emma actually does for a living?" The words were not loud, but they landed hard. My father blinked first. "She writes reports, doesn't she?" My mother added, "Policy articles." Daniel gave a small chuckle. "Consulting stuff." No one looked at me. They looked at one another, searching for a collective answer. The silence lengthened. Grandpa's expression didn't change. "I see." I felt heat rise to my face, but I didn't speak. "Not yet." Grandpa turned to me. "Would you like to tell them?" There was no sarcasm in his voice. Just invitation, so I did. "I lead a federally funded research project on coastal flood mitigation," I said calmly. "Our team published in 2 major journals this year. We secured a $1 to $2 million grant extension in May. I briefed a Senate committee in September." The words sounded foreign in that space. Too specific. Too factual. Daniel's smile faded slightly. My mother frowned as if recalibrating an image she'd held too long. I kept my tone steady. "No apology." Grandpa nodded once, as if confirming something to himself. Then he set down his napkin. "There's something else." My father shifted. "Dad, this is a celebration." "It still is," Grandpa replied, calm as ever. "Celebrations are good moments for clarity." The table went still. "I updated my will last month," he continued. "The Vermont property will be placed in a trust managed by Emma." Daniel's fork clinked against his dared. "Managed." "Yes. She understands long-term environmental risk and investment strategy better than anyone at this table." Daniel found his voice. "Grandpa, that place has always been assumed." Grandpa finished gently. "Assumptions are not inheritances." No one raised their voice, no one needed to. The control of the room had shifted so quietly it was almost elegant. My father tried to soften it. "We never meant to overlook Emma." Grandpa didn't argue. He simply said, "Attention is a form of respect. You give it where you believe value lives. There, not anger. Not punishment, just exposure." Daniel leaned back, stunned not by the property itself, but by the revelation that he had not been the automatic center of gravity. The cake sat untouched for several seconds too long. Eventually, my mother relit the mood with forced brightness. Well, let's not make this dramatic. But something fundamental had been rearranged. When Daniel blew out the candles, no one sang a second time. The dinner ended politely. Bills were paid. Chairs scraped softly against tile. Outside, the night air felt cooler than it had earlier. Grandpa walked beside me toward the parking lot. "You didn't need the property to be valuable," he said quietly. "I know. I just wanted them to see it." I nodded. I didn't feel victorious. The resentment I'd carried for years didn't dissolve in that moment. It still existed, sediment layered through childhood dinners and small dismissals. But it was no longer invisible. For the first time, the silence at the table had worked in my favor. Not because I demanded attention. Because someone with undeniable authority had simply asked a question no one else bothered to consider. And once asked, it could not be unheard. Daniel would still be celebrated. My parents would still default to old habits. But the dynamic had shifted, quiet, irreversible. And this time, I didn't have to fight for the space. It had been acknowledged. That was enough.